Hi, Detect and Groovy in the Table. Today we got another book on tape to play for you. Today book is Ancient China for 1985. So let's get started.
Ancient China. It's the start of a new planting season in China. Everyone is out to celebrate the new year and to see the parade. People are wearing new clothes, and they're waving paper streamers colored red for good luck. The noise of firecrackers, drums, and metal gongs fills the air. According to Chinese legend, the noise will drive away evil spirits and disease. Here comes the parade. There's a dragon with 20 pairs of legs. It has a huge head of many colors with rolling eyes and sharp ivory fangs. That should scare away the demons. People cheer and laugh at the dragon. They know it's only a costume. The legs belong to the men and boys of the town who carry the dragon's head and dance and kick up their heels under the red cloth body. Dragons are popular in China because they're the imaginary rulers of the clouds. Kind dragons bring rain for good crops. Cruel ones can make the crops fail with storms or dry spells. The dragons are powerful forces. That's why the kings and emperors who once ruled China took the dragon as their symbol of strength. Until modern times, China was ruled by dynasties. A dynasty was a royal family that passed on its power from father to son through many generations. The name of the ruling family became the name of each dynasty. Powerful families might rule for hundreds of years, but in times of war, a dynasty could quickly lose power. Some dynasties lasted only a generation or two. Chinese civilization is very old. It began before China even had a written language. Not much is known about very early Chinese dynasties because there are no written records. Then, about 3,000 years ago, during the Shang dynasty, the first writing appeared in China. The people asked the gods questions like, "Will it rain?" and "What about the rice crop?" Their questions were scratched or painted on bones and tortoise shells because paper had not yet been invented. In Chinese writing, each word has its own symbol called a character. This is very different from Western writing, which uses the letters of the alphabet to spell each word. Modern Chinese still uses the ancient method of writing in characters. It's a 3,000-year-old tradition. Tradition, language, and powerful dynasties are the strengths that made China one land. It took all three forces to unify this vast nation of different people and places. In westernmost China, Chinese people lived on the slopes of a mountain range they called the Roof of the World. The world's highest mountain, Mount Everest, is in that range. Thousands of miles to the east, Chinese sailors and fishermen lived on the coast of the mighty Pacific Ocean. Chinese farmers lived inland to the south, in a tropical world where bamboo and palm trees share the land with wet fields of growing rice. But in the north, life was much different among the Mongols. The Mongols were wandering tribes who raised sheep and horses. Riding their horses, the Mongols roamed a cold, dry wasteland of grass and deserts. Fearing the warlike Mongols, the Chinese built towers where guards could watch for invaders from the north. That was while there were still many kings in the different states of China. Then in 221 BC, during the Qin dynasty, one ruler gained power. China was united under an emperor for the first time. The emperor made widespread changes to help unify the country. The many provinces of China were ordered to use the same system of weights and measures, and everyone could follow the same laws now because they were simplified and written down. Most important of all, the Qin emperor created the Great Wall of China. Millions of workers were sent to build a huge wall of brick and mud between the watchtowers facing Mongol territory. Many men died at this hard labor, but the finished wall is one of the greatest constructions ever built. It's over 1,500 miles long, wide enough for 8 people to walk side by side on it, and much too high for the Mongols' horses to jump over. The Great Wall helped keep the Mongols out of China for over 1,000 years. Inside China, a time of great growth began, but people had trouble understanding one another because there were so many accents and dialects. Education, therefore, especially reading and writing, became more and more important. The great Chinese philosopher Confucius had said long ago that all people should have some education, and that the wisest citizens could then help the king run the country. Although Confucius was not very successful during his own lifetime, his ideas eventually spread and helped to make the Chinese empire strong. Emperors opened royal schools where even the poorest farm boys could study, if they were smart enough. The son of a servant could become rich and powerful as a royal advisor or governor of a state. Education gave China skilled doctors who knew much about medicine. And during this period, about 2,000 years ago, the Chinese invented paper, one of the world's great discoveries. Another wonderful Chinese creation is cloth made of silk. The Chinese guarded the secret of silk making for many centuries. Nobody else knew about the silkworms that eat mulberry leaves and spin cocoons of pure silk. Roman coins of gold and silver found their way to far-off China in payment for imported silk. The valuable fabric was brought thousands of miles by ship or overland along a trade run known as the Silk Route. Traveling the Silk Route was slow and sometimes dangerous, but it was the only link between Rome and China, the two great powers of the ancient world.
While Greece and then Rome were masters of the Western world, China was an equal power in the East. But China was very different. Greece and Rome developed the idea of one law for everyone. Chinese law drew careful lines between how a government official and a common worker should be punished for the same crime. Western thinkers thought about the importance of the individual. The Chinese put the family above all. The father was the head of the family. Even a grown man could be punished for disobeying his father. Women had almost no freedom. Marriage was arranged by the family, and a wife had to obey her husband's father.
During the Tang Dynasty, from 618 to 907 A.D., printing was invented, and many history books and encyclopedias were written. Public schools and fine libraries were established, and fine arts flowered too. Painters put beautiful watercolors on silk or paper. Their paintings expressed the Chinese ideal of harmony between people and nature. Poets were artists too. Each word of a poem was a single character lovingly painted in ink. This great age of creativity continued into the famous Sung Dynasty. The fine porcelain pottery known to us as China was perfected. Timekeeping and astronomy were improved with the invention of clocks, and sailors could find their way on the sea with the newly discovered magnetic compass. Even warfare was modernized. The Chinese had invented gunpowder. Now they knew how to attack their enemies with flaming rockets. But it was war that finally destroyed Sung power. Led by the great Mongol warrior Genghis Khan, the Mongols finally overran the Great Wall of China. When the famous Italian traveler Marco Polo reached China around 1300 A.D., it was ruled by Mongols. The Sung dynasty had been destroyed, but what Marco Polo described in his account was the result of centuries of Tang and Sung civilization. Marco Polo wrote of a large and magnificent city full of parks and glittering palaces. Streets were lighted with oil-burning lamps. There were towering temples called pagodas. The pagodas often had a curving tile roof over each story and were richly decorated. The markets were rich with meats, fruits, vegetables, and seafood. There were theaters full of dancers, singers, actors, and jugglers. The streets were crowded with people hurrying on their business. Some people were poor, but the government had welfare programs and homes for orphans. The poorer wooden houses of town were crowded together, and fires were common. But watchmen stood on the high arching bridges and alerted the fire brigade if they saw danger. Even now, in China, there are busy cities much like this. But what Marco Polo saw was the end of an era. After about 100 years, the Chinese chased the Mongols out. Then they established the long, peaceful Ming dynasty. Tradition preserved much that was great from China's past, but the most wonderful era of creativity and invention was over. Still, we continue to appreciate the many works of beauty and the endless contributions of the early Chinese.
So, that was Agent China from 1985. So if you like, subscribe, share, and comment, and have a groovy day. Our next book would be Sun.